I sit here in my cramped studio apartment, staring at the calendar on my phone. March 15th, my 28th birthday. The silence around me feels deafening, broken only by the distant hum of traffic outside my window. Just 2 hours ago, I scrolled through dozens of photos from my sister Amanda's birthday celebration last month. Dad rented the entire ballroom at Riverside Country Club, hired a professional photographer, brought in a jazz quartet, and spent $15,000 on what he called a night to remember for my precious daughter. The images showed Amanda in a custom designer dress, surrounded by elaborate floral arrangements and a 3-tier cake that probably cost more than my monthly rent. At 11 p.m. tonight, my phone buzzed with a single text message from Dad. "Happy birthday, son. Sorry. Busy with work." The same generic message I have received for 8 consecutive years. But something feels different this time. Something has shifted inside me. For 24 months, I have been secretly saving every single penny I could scrape together, living on ramen noodles and hope. Today marks the end of my waiting for validation that will never come. The memories flood back as I sit in the growing darkness of my apartment. When Amanda turned 16, Dad threw her a sweet 16 party that rivaled celebrity weddings. Professional caterers, a live DJ, and over 200 guests filled our backyard. He rented white tents, hired servers in formal attire, and even arranged for a horse-drawn carriage to bring Amanda to her own party. The local newspaper ran a feature story about the fairy tale celebration. When I turned 16 3 years later, Dad forgot completely. I came home from school expecting some acknowledgement, maybe a cake or even just a card. Instead, I found Dad on the phone planning Amanda's graduation party, which was still 6 months away. He looked up at me with confusion when I mentioned it was my birthday, then patted my shoulder and said, "Oh, right, we will do something special this weekend." That weekend never came. Since graduating college 4 years ago, I have worked 3 jobs simultaneously. Monday through Friday, I handle accounts receivable at a small manufacturing company downtown. Saturday mornings, I teach guitar lessons to kids in my neighborhood. Sunday afternoons and most evenings, I drive for a rideshare company navigating the city streets, while other people enjoy their leisure time. Every dollar I earn beyond basic survival expenses goes directly into my savings account. I live in a 400-square-foot studio apartment in a questionable part of town because the rent is only $800 per month. My furniture consists of a futon, a folding table I bought at a garage sale, and a plastic chair from a discount store. I eat peanut butter sandwiches for lunch every day and cook pasta with canned sauce for dinner 5 nights a week. Meanwhile, Amanda graduated college with a degree in communications that she has never used for employment. Dad pays her rent on a luxury downtown loft that costs $3,000 monthly. He bought her a brand new BMW on her 25th birthday, claiming she deserved reliable transportation. He funds her shopping trips, her gym membership at an exclusive fitness club, her weekly spa appointments, and her frequent weekend getaways to resort destinations. When she decided to start a boutique clothing business last year, Dad provided $20,000 in startup capital. The business failed within 6 months, but Amanda faced no consequences. Dad simply wrote off the loss and suggested she take time to find her passion. This morning, instead of wallowing in familiar disappointment, I make a phone call that changes everything. Sarah Rodriguez has been my real estate agent for the past year, though I have never been able to afford anything she has shown me. We developed a friendship during our house hunting sessions, and she understands my financial limitations. I dial her number with trembling fingers. "Sarah, this is Neville. I know it is my birthday, and this might sound crazy, but I want to make an offer on the Morrison lakefront cottage, the one we looked at last month." My voice sounds steadier than I feel. Sarah pauses. "Neville, that property is listed at $240,000. You mentioned your savings were around $50,000. Did something change with your finances?" I take a deep breath. "I have $48,237 saved. I want to offer exactly that as a down payment. 20% down. I qualify for the mortgage based on my employment history and credit score. Make the offer today. 3 hours later, Sarah calls back with news that leaves me speechless. The sellers, an elderly couple who owned the property for 35 years, accept my offer immediately. They tell Sarah that my earnest approach and work ethic remind them of their grandson, and they prefer selling to someone who will appreciate the property rather than waiting for a higher offer from investors who might demolish the cottage. By 6 p.m., I am signing paperwork at the title company. By 8 p.m., I am holding the keys to my own home. The cottage sits on half an acre of pristine lakefront property, featuring a wraparound porch, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and the most spectacular view of sunrise over the water I have ever witnessed. The previous owners maintained everything beautifully, leaving behind a functional kitchen, hardwood floors throughout, and a stone fireplace that dominates the cozy living room. As I stand on the front porch breathing in the crisp evening air, I realize something profound. This property represents more than home ownership. Dad has talked about this exact cottage for decades. During family dinners, he would drive us past this location and say, "Someday, when I have saved enough money, I am going to buy this place for our family. This will be our dream home." He never saved a single dollar toward that dream, because every extra penny went toward funding Amanda's lifestyle. Now I own the house Dad always coveted, but never had the discipline to pursue. Moving day arrives with the first warm Saturday of spring. I rent a small truck and transport my meager possessions to the cottage in 2 trips. The contrast between my old living situation and this new space feels surreal. Instead of staring at a brick wall outside my studio apartment window, I now wake up to panoramic views of the lake stretching toward distant hills. Instead of hearing sirens and arguing neighbors, I fall asleep to the gentle sounds of water lapping against the shoreline. I spend the following week setting up my new home office in the smaller bedroom, where large windows provide natural light for my remote workdays. The living room becomes my sanctuary, where I position my guitar near the fireplace for evening practice sessions. I furnish the space gradually with carefully chosen secondhand pieces from estate sales and thrift stores. A solid oak dining table cost me $40 from an elderly woman downsizing her home. A comfortable reading chair in burgundy leather comes from a consignment shop for $60. I refinish a vintage bookshelf myself, transforming scratched wood into a beautiful focal point for my growing collection of business and self-improvement books. Every morning, I wake up before dawn to witness the sunrise over the water. The sky transforms from deep purple to soft pink to brilliant orange, painting the lake surface like a mirror reflecting heaven. I brew coffee in my small but efficient kitchen and carry my mug to the deck that extends over the water. The previous owners built this deck with treated lumber and sturdy railings, creating the perfect spot for quiet reflection. On the second Saturday in my new home, I decide to share my joy with the world. I set up my phone camera on the deck railing, positioning it to capture both my smiling face and the stunning lake view behind me. The morning light illuminates the water perfectly, creating natural sparkles that no filter could improve. I take several photos, choosing the one where my genuine happiness shines through most clearly. Crafting the perfect caption takes me 20 minutes of careful thought. I want to convey my pride and accomplishment without sounding boastful or bitter. Finally, I settle on words that express exactly how I feel. Birthday gift, self-gift. Sometimes the best presents come from believing in yourself. I add hashtags for my hometown, the lake, and some motivational themes, then post the image to both Instagram and Facebook. Within 30 minutes, likes and comments begin flooding in from college, friends, co-workers, and distant relatives I have not spoken to in years. Most comments express genuine congratulations and amazement at the beautiful property. Former classmates share their own struggles with saving money and achieving financial goals. Co-workers from my various jobs express support and admiration for my dedication. But then, the comments take an unexpected turn. Aunt Margaret, Dad's sister, writes, "Wait, Is this not the lake house your dad always talked about buying? I remember him pointing out this exact cottage during family gatherings for years. He always said it was his dream retirement home. Uncle Robert, Mom's brother, adds fuel to the fire. Holy cow, Neville bought the Morrison property. Your dad has been obsessing over that place since the 80s. He used to drive by there every weekend, when you kids were little, planning how he would renovate it someday. Cousin Brian chimes in. Dude, your dad literally showed me real estate listings for this house like 5 years ago. He had the whole thing planned out, talking about installing a hot tub and expanding the deck. This is wild that you actually bought it. More family members join the conversation, each adding details about Dad's longtime fascination with this specific property. Apparently, his desire to own this cottage was common knowledge among our extended family, though he never mentioned these conversations to me directly. The comments section becomes a virtual family reunion, with everyone sharing memories of Dad's dreams and plans for this lakefront home. My phone starts ringing at 2 p.m. Dad's name appears on the screen, and I can practically feel his anger through the device before I answer. How dare you buy that house? His voice explodes through the speaker before I can say hello. You knew I wanted that property. This is a deliberate slap in my face. Where did you even get that kind of money? This is completely disrespectful and selfish. I remain calm, though my heart pounds in my chest. Hello to you too, Dad. Happy belated birthday wishes would be nice, considering you forgot again. Do not change the subject. You bought my dream house just to spite me. This is the most ungrateful thing you have ever done after everything I have sacrificed for this family. His words hit me like a physical blow, but they also crystallize something important in my mind. Even my greatest personal achievement becomes, in his eyes, an attack against him, rather than something worthy of celebration. Sunday afternoon brings an unwelcome surprise. Dad's silver Mercedes pulls into my driveway, followed immediately by Amanda's blue BMW. I watch from my living room window as they both emerge from their vehicles with expressions of barely contained fury. Dad wears his typical weekend outfit of pressed khakis and a polo shirt, but his usual composed demeanor has been replaced by visible agitation. Amanda follows behind him in designer jeans and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my monthly food budget. I open the front door before they can knock, stepping onto the porch to greet them. The late afternoon sun casts long shadows across the deck, and the lake behind me provides a peaceful backdrop that contrasts sharply with the tension radiating from my unexpected visitors. Well, this is certainly a surprise, I say, keeping my voice level. Would you like to come in and see the place? Dad ignores my invitation, immediately launching into another tirade. I cannot believe you would do something this vindictive, Neville. You knew this was my dream property, and you deliberately bought it just to hurt me. Where did you get that kind of money? Did you take out some predatory loan? Are you trying to destroy your financial future just to make a point? Amanda crosses her arms and assumes her familiar pose of indignant victimhood. This is so typical of you, Neville. You are always trying to show off and make Dad look bad. You know he works incredibly hard to provide for our family, and now you are flaunting some house purchase to embarrass him publicly. Those social media posts were completely inappropriate. I feel a familiar mixture of sadness and anger rising in my chest, but I force myself to respond thoughtfully, rather than reactively. Dad, I saved for 24 months to afford this down payment. I worked 3 jobs, lived in a studio apartment, and ate rice and beans most nights, so I could put away every possible dollar. This represents 2 years of discipline and sacrifice. I did not buy this house to spite you. I bought it because I wanted a home of my own. Don't give me that self-righteous speech. Dad's face grows red with anger. You could have bought any house, but you specifically chose this one because you knew I wanted it. This is pure selfishness, and it shows how ungrateful you are after everything I have done for you over the years. What exactly have you done for me? The question escapes my lips before I can stop it, and I immediately see Dad's expression shift to one of shock, that I would dare challenge his narrative. Before he can respond, we are interrupted by the sound of footsteps on the gravel driveway. An elderly woman with silver hair and a warm smile approaches carrying a wicker basket covered with a checkered cloth. She moves slowly, but with obvious purpose, wearing comfortable walking shoes and a cardigan despite the warm afternoon. "Hello there," she calls out cheerfully. "I am Dorothy Chen, and I live in the blue house just down the shoreline. I wanted to bring you some welcome cookies and introduce myself to the neighborhood's newest resident." I step forward to greet her, grateful for the interruption. "Mrs. Chen, what a lovely gesture. Thank you so much. I am Neville, and these are my father and sister who came to visit." Mrs. Chen's eyes light up with recognition as she looks at Dad. "Oh my goodness, you look familiar. Were you not the gentleman who called about this property several years ago? I remember because you seemed so interested in the house's history and the lake access." Dad's face goes pale, and he shifts uncomfortably under Mrs. Chen's innocent gaze. "I may have inquired about it once or twice." "Oh yes, I remember now," Mrs. Chen continues enthusiastically. "You called the Morrison family directly asking about their plans for selling. That must have been 4 or 5 years ago. They were not ready to sell then, but they remembered your call. In fact, when your son here made his offer, they specifically mentioned how nice it was that someone from your family was interested. They said you had expressed such genuine appreciation for the property's character." She turns to me with obvious admiration. "The Morrisons were so impressed with your approach, young man. They told me you reminded them of their grandson, who worked multiple jobs to save for his first home. They appreciated that you were not some investor looking to flip the property or tear down the cottage for a modern monstrosity. They wanted someone who would love this place the way they did." Amanda rolls her eyes dramatically. "That is a sweet story, but Neville should have discussed such a major purchase with family before making any decisions." Mrs. Chen looks puzzled by Amanda's comment. "Oh, but I thought this was a family decision. When your father called back then, he mentioned wanting to provide a special place for family gatherings and creating memories for his children. The Morrisons were charmed by that idea, which is part of why they were so pleased when Neville made his offer. The irony of the situation settles over us like a heavy blanket. Dad's earlier inquiry about the property, which he apparently presented as motivated by family benefits, now highlights the hypocrisy of his current anger at my purchase. Actually, Mrs. Chen, I say carefully, my father never mentioned his previous interest in this property to me. I found this house through my own research and made the purchase independently." Mrs. Chen's cheerful expression falters slightly as she senses the underlying tension. "Oh, I see. Well, family finances can be complicated, I suppose. The important thing is that this beautiful cottage will be loved and maintained by someone who appreciates it." She pauses thoughtfully, then adds with innocent curiosity, "Are you not proud of your son's achievement?" The Morrisons mentioned that when your father called years ago, his credit application was not approved, but they were impressed by his enthusiasm for the property. It must feel wonderful to see your son accomplish what you were working toward. The silence that follows Mrs. Chen's question is deafening. Dad's face cycles through multiple emotions: embarrassment at having his credit rejection mentioned publicly, anger at being put in an awkward position, and something that might be shame at his inability to respond appropriately to her question. Amanda fills the silence with her characteristic petulance. "Neville always has to be the center of attention. This whole thing is just another way for him to make Dad feel bad about his financial situation." Mrs. Chen looks genuinely confused by Amanda's response. "I apologize if I misunderstood something. I just thought parents would be excited when their children achieve their goals through hard work and determination. The Morrisons were so impressed by your son's work ethic and financial responsibility." As Mrs. Chen walks away with obvious bewilderment at our family dynamics, I realize that this encounter has revealed something crucial. Dad's anger about my house purchase is not really about the property itself. It is about his own feelings of inadequacy and failure projected onto me because I accomplished something he could not. Monday morning arrives with the clarity that often follows emotional storms. After Dad and Amanda left yesterday in obvious frustration, I spent the evening reflecting on Mrs. Chen's innocent revelations about Dad's previous credit rejection. Something about the timing of his inquiry versus my timeline does not add up, and I decide to investigate further. During my lunch break at work, I call my college friend Jake Morrison, who now works as a certified public accountant at a firm downtown. Jake and I have maintained our friendship through regular basketball games and occasional dinners, and I trust his discretion with sensitive financial matters. Jake, I need some advice about understanding someone's financial situation through public records. Is that something you could help me research legally and ethically? Jake agrees to meet me after work at a coffee shop near his office. When I explain the situation with Dad's anger about my house purchase and the revelation about his credit rejection, Jake immediately understands why I need more information. Public records can tell us a lot about property ownership, mortgages, and legal financial matters, Jake explains. If your father owns property or has taken out loans, those records are available through the county clerk's office and other public databases. Let me do some digging tonight, and I will call you tomorrow with what I find. Tuesday evening, Jake calls with information that leaves me speechless. He has spent hours researching Dad's financial history through public records, and the picture that emerges explains everything about our family's dysfunction. Neville, your father, has refinanced your childhood home twice in the past 5 years. Jake begins. The house was originally purchased in 1998 for $160,000. Based on current market values, it should be worth around $180,000 today. But your father owes $260,000 against it. I nearly dropped my phone. How is that possible? The first refinance happened 3 years ago for $40,000, above the original mortgage balance. Based on the timing that corresponds with your sister's college graduation and her car purchase. The second refinance occurred 18 months ago for another $60,000, above what he owed then. That money appears to have funded various personal expenses and investments in your sister's business venture. Jake continues with more disturbing details. But here is the really interesting part. 3 months ago, your father took out a second mortgage for $47,000. The paperwork lists the purpose as home improvements and family expenses. But the timing suggests it was for your sister's engagement party and wedding down payment. The irony hits me like a physical blow. While I was eating ramen noodles and working 3 jobs to save $48,000 for my house down payment, Dad was borrowing essentially the same amount to fund Amanda's party lifestyle. There is more, Jake says grimly. I found records of several smaller personal loans and credit lines. Your father appears to be carrying significant debt across multiple lenders. Based on what I can see publicly, his total debt obligations probably exceed $300,000, while his income from the insurance agency likely caps around $70,000 annually. The mathematical reality is staggering. Dad's debt-to-income ratio makes him a high-risk borrower, which explains why his credit application for the lakefront cottage was rejected 5 years ago. Instead of addressing his spending habits and improving his financial position, he continued borrowing money to maintain Amanda's expensive lifestyle. Jake, is there any indication of what the borrowed money was actually spent on? Can you track where it went? Not through public records alone, but the timing of each loan corresponds perfectly with major expenses for your sister. The first refinance happened right before her college graduation party and BMW purchase. The second refinance coincides with her boutique business startup costs. The most recent second mortgage was taken out exactly 6 weeks before her engagement announcement, when your father started planning her elaborate engagement party. I sit in my cottage living room, watching the sunset paint the lake in shades of gold and crimson, trying to process this information. For years, Dad has portrayed himself as a responsible provider, who occasionally stretched his budget to give his children opportunities. In reality, he has systematically destroyed his financial security to fund one child's extravagant lifestyle, while completely ignoring the other child's needs and achievements. "There is one more thing, Neville," Jake says softly. "I checked the public records for your property purchase. Your mortgage application shows stellar credit, stable employment history, and a 20% down payment with significant cash reserves remaining. You qualify as an ideal borrower in every category. Meanwhile, your father's credit profile would make him nearly impossible to approve for any significant loan at this point." Wednesday morning, I drive past my childhood home for the first time since buying my cottage. The house looks the same from the outside, but knowing about the crushing debt burden it carries changes my perspective entirely. Dad created a beautiful facade while destroying the foundation, just like his approach to parenting. He focused on surface-level appearances and expensive gestures for Amanda, while ignoring the more important work of building genuine relationships and teaching responsible life skills. As I continue toward my office, I realize that my house purchase represents more than just personal achievement. It demonstrates the fundamental difference between authentic success built on discipline and sacrifice versus the illusion of prosperity built on debt and unsustainable spending. Dad's anger about my cottage purchase finally makes complete sense. My achievement highlights his failures in the most direct way possible. I accomplished through hard work and patience what he could never achieve through borrowing and impulsive spending. My success exposes the emptiness of his financial philosophy and the consequences of his favoritism toward Amanda. The annual family barbecue at Uncle Robert's house takes place on the first Sunday in May, and I arrive with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. This gathering traditionally brings together Dad's siblings, their spouses, children, and grandchildren for an afternoon of food conversation and catching up on family news. Given the tension surrounding my house purchase, I expect this year's event to feel different. Uncle Robert greets me with an enthusiastic handshake and immediately asks for details about my new home. "Neville, I saw your photos online and that cottage looks incredible. Your dad always talked about buying lakefront property, so it must make him proud to see you achieve that goal." Before I can respond to Robert's innocent comment, Aunt Margaret approaches with her characteristic warm smile. "There is our homeowner. I have been bragging to all my friends about my nephew, who saved up and bought his own place at 28 years old. In this economy, that is no small accomplishment." Margaret pulls me aside near the garden, where we can speak privately. "Neville, I need to tell you something that has been bothering me for years. Every birthday, since you turned 21, I have been sending your father $200 specifically for your birthday celebration. I always include a card that says, 'For Neville's birthday party,' or 'Make sure this goes towards something special for Neville.' Has he ever mentioned receiving that money?" My heart sinks as I realize the implication of her question. "No, Aunt Margaret. Dad has never mentioned any birthday money from you. In fact, he typically forgets my birthday entirely, or sends a generic text message." Margaret's face flushes with anger. "That son of a gun, I have sent him $1,600 over the past 8 years, always with specific instructions that the money was for celebrating your birthday. I assumed he was using it to take you out to dinner, or buy you meaningful gifts. Are you telling me he never spent a penny of that money on you?" The revelation hits me like a punch to the stomach. While I was feeling neglected and forgotten on my birthdays, Aunt Margaret was specifically providing funds for Dad to acknowledge and celebrate those occasions. Dad not only ignored my birthdays, but actively stole money that was designated for those celebrations. Our conversation is interrupted by my cousin Brian, Uncle Robert's son, who joins us with a beer in hand and a confused expression on his face. "Hey Neville, weird question, but did Dad ever follow through on that birthday surprise he borrowed money for last year?" "What birthday surprise?" I ask, though I already dread the answer. "Your dad called me last March and said he wanted to do something really special for your 27th birthday, to make up for all the years he was too busy with work. He asked to borrow $3,000, promising to pay it back within 60 days. He said he was planning some kind of surprise trip or experience that would cost more than he had available in his checking account. Margaret and I exchange knowing looks as Brian continues his story. I was actually touched that he wanted to celebrate you properly for once, so I transferred the money immediately. But then, I never heard anything about a birthday celebration, and when I asked him about repayment in June, he claimed he never borrowed any money from me. When I showed him the bank transfer records, he said there must have been some misunderstanding and that he would look into it. Brian pauses, clearly putting pieces together in his mind. Wait, that was right around the time Amanda posted all those photos from her spring break trip to Europe. She was staying in some luxury resort in Italy for 2 weeks. The timing seems too coincidental now that I think about it. My stomach churns as the pattern becomes clear. Dad borrowed money from Brian under the pretense of celebrating my birthday, then used that exact amount to fund Amanda's vacation. Not only did he forget my birthday again, but he actively used my name to fraudulently obtain money from family members. Brian, he never mentioned any birthday plans to me. I spent my 27th birthday alone in my apartment, same as every other year. But I remember Amanda posting constantly from that Italy trip, and she mentioned that Dad surprised her with the vacation as a reward for completing some online certification course. Margaret's anger reaches a boiling point. This is absolutely unacceptable. Robert needs to hear about this immediately. Your father has been stealing money from multiple family members while claiming it was for your benefit. Before we can continue our conversation, we are approached by a familiar elderly woman who I have not seen in several years. Grandmother Patricia, Dad's mother, moves slowly with her walker, but maintains the sharp intelligence that has always defined her personality. Neville, sweetheart, I have been meaning to call you about something important, she says, settling into a nearby lawn chair. I set up an education savings account for you when you graduated high school, and I have been depositing $1,000 into it every year for your future. Your father has power of attorney to help manage it, but I never hear any updates about the balance or your plans for using the money. Margaret and Brian both turn to look at Grandmother Patricia with growing alarm. I feel a cold dread spreading through my chest as I anticipate what comes next. Grandma, I have never heard anything about an education savings account. Dad has never mentioned it to me. Grandmother Patricia's face goes pale. That is impossible, dear. I have made those deposits faithfully every year for 10 years. The account should have approximately $15,000 by now, including interest earnings. I gave your father power of attorney specifically so he could help you access the money for continuing education, professional development, or other worthwhile investments in your future. She reaches into her purse and pulls out a manila folder containing bank statements and deposit receipts. I brought these documents today because I wanted to discuss how you might want to use the money. Let me show you the account details. As Grandmother Patricia opens the folder, her confusion becomes evident. The most recent bank statement shows an account balance of $0. Every annual deposit she made was withdrawn within weeks of being deposited with signatures that appear to authorize educational expenses. I do not understand, she says, her voice trembling with confusion and growing anger. Where did all the money go? These withdrawal authorizations have forged signatures claiming the money was used for your tuition and educational materials. But you are telling me you never received any of this money. Margaret gently takes the documents from Grandmother Patricia's shaking hands and examines them closely. These signatures look nothing like Neville's handwriting. Patricia, I think your son has been stealing this money for 10 years. Brian pulls out his smartphone and starts taking photos of the bank statements. This is criminal fraud. He has been forging Neville's signature to steal money from his own mother, while claiming it was for educational expenses. The mathematical reality becomes clear as we examine the documents together. Dad has stolen $15,000 specifically designated for my education and future development money provided by his own mother, out of love and concern for my success. The stolen funds were withdrawn systematically over 10 years, coinciding perfectly with various expensive purchases for Amanda. Grandmother Patricia begins crying softly as she realizes the depth of her son's betrayal. I trusted him completely. I thought he was helping coordinate your education funding and making sure the money was used wisely. I never imagined he would steal from both of us. Margaret puts her arm around Grandmother Patricia's shoulders, while Brian continues documenting the evidence with his phone. I sit in stunned silence, trying to process the systematic nature of Dad's financial abuse. The stolen birthday money from Aunt Margaret totals $1,600 over 8 years. The fraudulent loan from Brian totals $3,000. The stolen education funds from Grandmother Patricia total $15,000. Dad has stolen nearly $20,000 from family members while claiming financial hardship and inability to acknowledge my birthdays or support my goals. As we sit in Uncle Robert's garden, surrounded by the sounds of family conversation and children playing, the true scope of Dad's manipulation becomes undeniable. He has not simply neglected me in favor of Amanda. He has actively stolen money designated specifically for my benefit, while maintaining a public facade of being a caring but financially stretched father. Monday morning, I take a personal day from work to meet with attorney Linda Martinez, whom Brian recommended based on her expertise in family financial crimes and elder abuse cases. Linda's office occupies the 15th floor of a downtown high-rise, and her professional demeanor immediately puts me at ease during what I know will be a difficult conversation. After reviewing the bank statements, loan documentation, and witness statements that Brian helped me organize, Linda explains the legal implications of Dad's actions with sobering clarity. Neville, what your father has done constitutes multiple criminal offenses, she begins. The forged signatures on your grandmother's education account represent identity theft and elder financial abuse. The fraudulent loan from your cousin using false pretenses constitutes wire fraud. The systematic theft of birthday money from your aunt falls under general theft statutes. Linda spreads the documents across her conference table, organizing them by type of crime and potential damages. In total, we can document nearly $20,000 in stolen funds, plus interest and penalties. More importantly, this pattern of behavior suggests systematic financial abuse targeting vulnerable family members. She explains that elderly financial abuse carries particularly serious penalties because it targets individuals who often depend on family members for financial management assistance. Your grandmother trusted your father with power of attorney specifically to help manage your educational funding. His betrayal of that trust represents one of the most serious forms of elder abuse under current law. Linda recommends filing police reports for each category of theft, starting with the forged signatures on Grandmother Patricia's education account. The bank records provide clear evidence of systematic fraud over multiple years. Combined with witness testimony from family members, this creates a strong criminal case. Tuesday afternoon, I accompany Grandmother Patricia to the police station to file formal complaints. Detective Sarah Williams specializes in financial crimes, and she immediately recognizes the seriousness of our situation. After reviewing our documentation, Detective Williams explains that cases involving forged signatures and elder abuse receive priority investigation status. The systematic nature of these thefts suggests your father has experience with financial manipulation, Detective Williams observes. We will need to investigate whether other family members or clients from his insurance business have been similarly victimized. While waiting for the criminal investigation to proceed, I decide to channel my energy into something constructive. That evening, I start a blog called The Forgotten Son Chronicles, where I share my story of overcoming family financial abuse and achieving independence through hard work and determination. The first post, titled When Family Steals Your Future, details my experience of discovering the stolen education funds and birthday money. I write about the emotional impact of learning that family members had been trying to support me for years, only to have their generosity stolen and redirected. Within 48 hours, the blog post goes viral on social media platforms. Hundreds of people share similar stories of family financial abuse, parental favoritism, and the struggle to achieve independence despite toxic family dynamics. The comment section becomes a support network where people encourage each other and share resources for dealing with family financial crimes. Local news outlets pick up the story after my blog gains regional attention. Channel 7 News contacts me for an interview about elder financial abuse and family theft patterns. The reporter Jennifer Chang explains that my story highlights a growing problem that often goes unreported because victims feel ashamed or reluctant to prosecute family members. During the televised interview, I focus on encouraging other victims to seek help and documenting their experiences. Financial abuse thrives in secrecy, I explain. When we share our stories and hold abusers accountable, we protect other potential victims and create consequences for criminal behavior. The news story airs on Thursday evening, and the response overwhelms my expectations. The television station receives dozens of calls from viewers sharing similar experiences with family financial abuse. Detective Williams contacts me Friday morning to report that 3 additional families have filed complaints against Dad after recognizing patterns similar to their own experiences with him. Your father appears to have used similar tactics with several insurance clients over the past 5 years, Detective Williams explains. He convinced elderly clients to give him power of attorney for financial planning purposes, then systematically stole money from their accounts using forged signatures and false documentation. The investigation expands beyond our family situation as more victims come forward with evidence of Dad's fraudulent activities. The total amount of documented theft exceeds $80,000 across multiple victims, transforming the case from family disputes into serious felony charges. Friday afternoon brings the moment I have been both anticipating and dreading. Detective Williams calls to inform me that Dad has been arrested at his insurance office on multiple felony charges, including elder abuse identity, theft wire fraud, and embezzlement. The arrest was conducted at his workplace to ensure we could secure all relevant business documents before he had opportunity to destroy evidence, Detective Williams explains. His colleagues and clients witnessed the arrest, which should help prevent him from victimizing additional people while the case proceeds. I feel a complex mixture of emotions as I absorb this news. Relief that the systematic theft has been exposed and stopped. Sadness that our family situation deteriorated to the point of criminal prosecution. Satisfaction that justice is finally being served for grandmother Patricia and other victims who trusted Dad with their financial security. That evening, Amanda calls me for the first time since the confrontation at my cottage. Her voice sounds smaller and more uncertain than I have ever heard it. Neville, I just found out about Dad's arrest. The news story is all over social media, and people are messaging me, asking if I knew about the stolen money. I swear I had no idea he was taking money from family members. I thought he was just successful with his business and could afford to help me with expenses. For the first time in our adult relationship, Amanda sounds genuinely remorseful rather than defensive. I feel sick thinking about all the money grandmother Patricia saved for you, that I probably benefited from without knowing it, and Aunt Margaret, trying to make sure you had good birthdays while I was getting elaborate parties funded by stolen money. Her acknowledgement of the situation represents the first step toward genuine accountability, though I recognize that years of enabling and entitlement cannot be undone with a single conversation. The legal consequences unfold rapidly over the following months. Dad pleads guilty to multiple felony charges in exchange for a sentence that includes 5 years of supervised probation, full restitution to all victims, and community service focused on financial literacy education for at-risk populations. The plea agreement requires him to surrender his insurance license permanently and submit to ongoing financial monitoring to prevent future theft. The restitution amount totals nearly $100,000 when interest and penalties are included, forcing Dad to liquidate virtually all his assets. The family home goes into foreclosure, and his retirement accounts are seized to compensate victims. He moves into a small apartment and takes a job at a retail store experiencing financial insecurity for the first time in his adult life. Amanda faces her own reckoning as the lifestyle she considered normal disappears overnight. Her luxury apartment lease cannot be renewed without Dad's financial support, and she moves back in with Mom, who has filed for divorce, and moved to a modest rental property. For the first time in her life, Amanda applies for employment and discovers that her communications degree and lack of work experience limit her options significantly. The contrast between our situations could not be more stark. While Dad and Amanda struggle with the consequences of years of financial irresponsibility, I thrive in my lakefront cottage with a clear conscience and genuine financial security. The extended family rallies around Grandmother Patricia and me in ways that restore my faith in family relationships. Uncle Robert organizes a fund to supplement Grandmother Patricia's stolen education money, raising $12,000 from cousins, aunts, and uncles who want to support my continued success. Aunt Margaret insists on continuing her annual birthday contributions, but now she sends them directly to me, with heartfelt cards acknowledging all the years her gifts were stolen. Most importantly, Grandmother Patricia asks if she can move into my cottage guest room, explaining that she no longer feels safe living alone and wants to rebuild her relationship with the grandson she never really got to know. I eagerly agree to this arrangement, and we begin creating the intergenerational bond that Dad's manipulation prevented for so many years. Living with Grandmother Patricia transforms my cottage into a real home filled with warmth and wisdom. She teaches me family recipes that were passed down through generations, shares stories about my grandfather's work ethic and integrity, and helps me understand the values that Dad abandoned in his pursuit of appearances over substance. Together, we establish new traditions that honor genuine relationship building rather than expensive gestures. Sunday morning coffee on the deck becomes our sacred time for deep conversations about life values and family history. Evening walks along the shoreline provide opportunities for Grandmother Patricia to share memories while I update her on my career goals and personal growth. My blog continues growing in readership and impact, becoming a resource for people dealing with family financial abuse and toxic relationship dynamics. Publishers contact me about expanding the content into a book about overcoming family dysfunction and building authentic success through personal responsibility. 6 months after Dad's arrest, Amanda reaches out to request a private conversation at my cottage. She arrives looking different than I have ever seen her, dressed in simple clothing, from discount stores, driving a used car she purchased with her own earnings, and carrying herself with a humility that years of privilege never taught her. Neville. I need to apologize for so many things. I do not know where to start. She begins settling into a chair on my deck, while Grandmother Patricia prepares tea in the kitchen. I spent years believing that Dad's favoritism toward me was normal, and that your independence was just stubbornness. I never realized how much you were struggling, or how unfairly you were being treated. Amanda's voice carries genuine emotion as she continues. Learning about all the stolen money made me realize that my entire lifestyle was built on theft from people who loved us. Every birthday party, every shopping trip, every vacation was funded by money that should have gone to your education or celebrations. I feel sick knowing that I benefited from criminal activity without recognizing it. She pauses to wipe away tears before continuing. I also need to tell you how much I admire what you have built here. This cottage represents everything I was never taught to value: hard work, sacrifice planning, and genuine achievement. You saved every penny for 2 years, while I was spending stolen money on designer clothes and spa treatments. The conversation continues for hours as Amanda shares her struggles with basic life skills that she never learned because Dad solved every problem for her with borrowed money. She has difficulty managing a budget, lacks experience with employment expectations, and feels overwhelmed by the reality of supporting herself financially. Would you be willing to teach me some of what you learned about saving money and building a real life? She asks tentatively. I know I do not deserve your help after years of treating you badly, but I want to change. I want to build something authentic instead of living off other people's money. The request touches something deep in my heart, representing the sister relationship I always hoped we could have someday. Over the following months, Amanda and I begin rebuilding our connection, based on mutual respect, rather than the toxic dynamics Dad created through his favoritism. She visits the cottage regularly for financial planning sessions, where I teach her budgeting strategies, debt management techniques, and the satisfaction that comes from earning rather than receiving. Grandmother Patricia joins these conversations, sharing wisdom about living within one's means and finding happiness through relationships rather than material possessions. Dad writes letters from his supervised probation program, expressing remorse for his actions and requesting forgiveness from family members he victimized. His letters acknowledge the damage caused by years of favoritism, financial manipulation, and emotional neglect. While I appreciate his willingness to accept responsibility, I maintain clear boundaries that protect my emotional well-being. Forgiveness does not require forgetting or accepting future abuse. I explained to Grandmother Patricia as we discussed Dad's letters. I can forgive him for my own peace, while still protecting myself from further manipulation. As my 29th birthday approaches, the contrast with previous years feels surreal. Extended family members contact me weeks in advance to coordinate a surprise celebration at my cottage. Aunt Margaret and Uncle Robert organize catering, while cousins handle decorations and music. Grandmother Patricia supervises the planning while pretending to know nothing about the surprise. The party takes place on a perfect Saturday afternoon in March, with sunshine reflecting off the lake and creating ideal conditions for outdoor celebration. 35 family members gather on my deck and lawn, representing the loving community that Dad's manipulation had kept from me for so many years. For the first time in my adult life, I receive thoughtful birthday gifts chosen specifically for my interests and goals. Uncle Robert gives me a professional quality tool set for cottage maintenance projects. Cousin Brian contributes a beautiful wooden bookshelf he built himself. Aunt Margaret presents a leather-bound journal for continuing my writing projects. But the most meaningful gift comes from Amanda, who arrives carrying a small wrapped box that she clearly chose with great care. Inside, I find a simple silver compass, engraved with the words, "For the brother who always knew his true direction." I wanted to give you something that represented what I have learned from watching your journey. She explains, as family members gather around to listen. You never lost sight of your values or goals, even when our family situation made it incredibly difficult to stay on the right path. The party continues into the evening with storytelling, laughter, and genuine celebration of relationships rather than expensive displays. As I stand on my deck, watching family members enjoy themselves in and around my home, I realize that this gathering represents everything Dad's elaborate parties for Amanda never achieved: authentic joy, meaningful connections, and celebration of character rather than appearance. Later that evening, after the last guests have departed and Grandmother Patricia has settled in for the night, I sit alone on my deck, reflecting on the journey that brought me to this moment. The lake stretches peacefully toward distant hills, and stars begin appearing in the darkening sky. My phone buzzes with a text message, but instead of the generic birthday greeting that defines so many previous years, I find dozens of heartfelt messages from family members, friends, and blog readers who have followed my story. Each message acknowledges not just the anniversary of my birth, but the growth, courage, and integrity that led me to build a life worth celebrating. The transformation feels complete, as I realize that the validation I sought for so many years from Dad was never really what I needed. True satisfaction comes from knowing that I built something meaningful through honest effort, maintained my values, despite difficult circumstances, and used my experience to help others facing similar challenges. 6 months later, Amanda moves into a modest apartment near her new job at a nonprofit organization focused on financial literacy education for low-income families. She has learned to find fulfillment in meaningful work rather than expensive possessions, and our sibling relationship continues growing stronger through shared values rather than shared dysfunction. Dad completes his community service requirements and occasionally sends updates about his progress in rebuilding his life on an honest foundation. While our relationship remains limited by necessary boundaries, I take some satisfaction in knowing that the consequences of his actions led to genuine accountability and change. Grandmother Patricia and I continue our daily routines of coffee on the deck, evening walks by the lake, and long conversations about family history and life wisdom. Her presence transforms my cottage into a multi-generational home where authentic relationships flourish in place of the dysfunction that defined our family for so many years. My blog has evolved into a platform that reaches thousands of readers dealing with family financial abuse, toxic relationship dynamics, and the challenge of building authentic success despite difficult circumstances. Publishers have offered contracts for expanding the content into a comprehensive guide for overcoming family dysfunction. But the greatest success is measured not in external recognition or financial achievement, but in the peace that comes from living with integrity and surrounding myself with people who value character over appearances. Every sunrise over the lake reminds me that authentic wealth cannot be borrowed, stolen, or inherited. It must be built through discipline, patience, and commitment to values that withstand the test of time. As I prepare for my 30th birthday next year, I know that the celebration will be filled with people who appreciate the journey rather than the destination, relationships built on genuine care, rather than financial manipulation, and joy that comes from authentic achievement rather than hollow displays of borrowed prosperity. The cottage by the lake represents more than home ownership or financial success. It stands as proof that patient work toward meaningful goals creates lasting satisfaction, that family relationships can be rebuilt on foundations of honesty and mutual respect, and that true wealth lies in the ability to wake up each morning with a clear conscience and genuine appreciation for the life you have built with your own hands. Have you ever had to choose between accepting family dysfunction and building your own path to authentic success? What strategies helped you maintain your values when the people closest to you seem to prioritize appearances over integrity? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with your own experiences, please like this video to help others find encouragement for their own journeys. Subscribe to hear more stories about overcoming family challenges and building meaningful lives through personal responsibility. Share this video with anyone who might benefit from knowing that authentic success is possible, even when family support is absent. Thank you for joining me in exploring these difficult but important topics about family money and the courage to choose your own direction. I wish you all the strength and wisdom to build lives that reflect your deepest values, regardless of the challenges you face along the way.